Welcome back to another episode of Astrology with Alice. I'm here with my very good friend. We have a guest on this week. Her name is Alexia, and she is one of my really good friends and a channeler. And she helps people learn how to heal like their past, their present, in order to get more what they want out of life. She's also worked with so many high-profile clients and celebrities, and I'm just so excited to have you here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you, honey, and just a dear friend of mine. So
I loved being able to catch up with you these past day. We had a really late dinner last night.
Super late dinner.
Yeah.
I think it was so fun, and just being able to catch up about what life has been. Just the past 4 years have been kind of crazy.
Yeah. So like for those of you who don't know, Alexia and I met because back in 2020, this was July 2020, I posted an Instagram story about how like wearing jewelry, kind of the jewelry you wear and where you wear it on your body could be indicative of jewelry you wore in a past life, or like kind of a deeper connection than you may realize. And I remember you responded to that Instagram story and you were like, "Oh, honey," because you always call everyone honey, which I have learned to love. You were like, "I actually give past life readings and I channel. Like, do you want to get one from me?" And I was like, "Sure," because it was the pandemic, not doing anything. And then from there, we became really good friends.
Yeah, it was so special. I think it was like an instant connection. Like right away, we just knew. Just the way you responded, it was like we were already friends. So it was really nice.
Yeah.
And just noticing like the energy. I saw right away the jewelry. It even seemed familiar to me.
Oh my God, I love this.
Yeah, so I felt so connected to be like, well, honey, that's, it's easy to know. You want to know? I can help.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you say that about honey, because I always say it due to the connection of bees and like the vibration it carries.
Okay.
So it's like me feeling like I call you your love. You're like the highest vibration, authenticity.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So it's connected to that.
Before we get into what you do and like how you channel and tips you have for people on like trusting their own intuition, why don't you tell everyone what your sun, moon, rising is? Because this is an astrology podcast.
So I've made a peace with my rising and my moon because it used to be called like super intense, but my sun is Aquarius.
Yeah.
My rising and my moon are Scorpio.
And I love that. I have so many Scorpio moons in my life. My stepmom's a Scorpio. My husband's a Scorpio moon, sorry.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the part of your chart that makes you the most intuitive.
That
and
makes sense.
Like how you're able to immediately read people, and kind of also the moon in the first house of your chart, like the moon in the same sign of your rising. So if anyone listening also has that, that's like a chart placement that just makes you more in tune with the emotions of other people, and you're just more sensitive overall, and you also have this like nurturing energy, like people feel comfortable opening up to you.
Oh yes, it's like a very typical thing. People come up to me, they want to tell me about their life, and I'm like, I didn't not in a bad way, but it's like it's just so natural for people to just open up. And I mean, I love nurturing. I want to hug everyone, so it makes sense.
And you're an Aquarius, I'm an Aquarius. Our birthdays are 1 day apart, which is so cool.
It's a bit insane, yeah. Every time, have I told you what I see in our past lives?
No.
Yeah, like being best friends, like always connected when it comes to work. Kind of like, like a sisterhood. That's kind of how it's placed in the past lives, yeah.
I love that.
So special. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get more into that and like how you're even able to see that. But why don't you explain like how, like when did you first grow into these intuitive gifts? Is this something you were born with? Also maybe like describe the feeling of when they first came to you, basically like your background with this and like growing up and what that was like.
So to me, it wasn't tough. It was just, I think, more tough for my surroundings. Like my mom, she was young, so she had a daughter who was saying things that maybe a 4-year-old doesn't say, channeling randomly.
Really? Yeah. How was that like as a 4-year-old?
To me, since I don't know any other type of way of doing things as a 4-year-old, to me, it was more of seeing two worlds at the same time. Until I was like 9, I started noticing the difference between what was energy and what was like more physical, like grounding. So I was very emotional. I was a very emotional and sensitive baby.
Yeah.
Any little energy, I would cry. People who would be in front of me knew they wanted to cry and they wouldn't. So I would take in the energy and I would just cry for them.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That must have been a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. But I had an amazing mom who really knew how to handle it and guide me towards being okay with other people not expressing and not taking in what's theirs.
So she was never like, Alexia, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous.
Never. She never made me feel ridiculous. She never questioned me. But I do think she was worried, of course. I think she put on a strong face, but I could feel her worry. But that worry wasn't like, oh, my daughter's not okay. It was more of, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Because I was always right. Whenever I would say something or see a vision or sense something, even though it wasn't obvious, it would end up being whatever I sensed.
What was like something you sensed? Like what was an example?
I mean, the simplest thing was if she made a friend and she would come to my house, I was like, oh, I don't like her energy around her house. She's going to do this.
Oh my God.
And she would end up doing it. At first, my mom would be like, honey, no, like, don't think about people that way. Like, my mom's very sweet that way. But then she would notice it would happen. She was like, oh, no, my daughter's not judging. Yeah. She's just seeing the truth.
Oh, my God.
So she started being a bit careful of who I was around and why. And also noticing, if you notice something and it's just the truth, just detach. Like, just know you can go on your own path and they can go on theirs. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was a lot of communication for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so nice having like supportive family around this. And your grandmother, you've mentioned, was an astrologer.
Yes.
And she's always like telling you, like, lean into your chart. Like you were saying the other day, she was like, you're not embracing your Leo midheaven enough.
Yes. She literally just called me for that. She was like, I'm watching you. You're not using your midheaven. And I was like, what do you mean? What is that? Because I never really leaned into astrology. I just accepted my channel.
Yeah.
But she was always there kind of like letting me know, like, oh, like your Saturn return is coming up. Like she's always used that language. So when you came into my life, it was very almost like a instant connection as well, because I know the language. Yeah. And it was just natural. But yeah, my grandma she's amazing too. And I had both sides. I have a grandmother who's super Catholic. Okay. And then the astrologer who is like not religious at all. Yeah, which was beautiful.
That's really interesting. Yeah. When did you decide, I mean, I already know this, but for the listeners, when did you decide to turn these gifts into a business? And what was that process like?
So I think it was one of the processes where it was when I really had to accept myself. I think that's why I love to help people get what they want, because when you get what you want, you connect to your authenticity. And all authenticity is staying true to yourself, being congruent. What you think, you feel, you act as. Yeah. I was around 24, 23, and I started kind of like doing it with people around me, channeling for them. At first, it wasn't like, oh, I can make it a business or like my job or my career. But then I started seeing it like really amplify. And I gave myself a 6-month grace where I really sat down, set the intention. I was guided by my guides, kind of like, is this okay? Because of course you have that moment of, am I supposed to charge?
Yeah, I had that same moment with astrology. Like it was just a hobby that I was super passionate about. But then it was like, wait, can I turn this into something?
Because you love it so much. It comes so natural to you that you're like, what? This isn't work. This isn't like, we have such a different idea of what career is. Yeah. So that started everything. I was in nursing and that wasn't fit for me. It was too sensitive for it.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's such a job where you're giving so much energy to other people.
Yes, and more that it's like such a physical touch. And I'm so sensitive when it comes to physical touch. Okay. I knew when people were going to leave, when it was just not a fun ride for me. Yeah. So I detached from that. I took those 6 months to really set an intention and even channel how I could help. Like, how would I use this gift? And July 7th, 2020. I started and I met you July 9th, I believe. I DM'd you and then we did the reading on July 12th.
So this was your astrology at that time, because I always remember what was happening in people's charts. I have their chart memorized. There was eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn. There were actually 3 eclipses that summer. There was Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Cancer, I'm pretty sure. And that was your 9th and 3rd houses as a Scorpio rising, the Cancer Capricorn, which is a lot about leaning into spiritual practice and widening your beliefs and also figuring out how to share your knowledge and ideas with people. But then the shift towards the Sagittarius, Gemini eclipses that were happening that year was like, how do I now turn these interests into a business and make money off of it? So that's so fascinating that like right at that time, it was like, okay, how do we do this?
Yeah, so exact. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I love the way you use astrology, the way you use it as a tool rather than it telling you what to do.
Yeah,
to me, that's
definitely.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Using things as tools. So me being connected to that intuition in my channel and following what I do and then using the tool of astrology, you came into my life and you were like, well, this is why it's happening. Kind of like giving the why.
Yeah.
How do you usually tell people to use it as a tool?
It's kind of like I get a lot of people that are like, am I doomed because of this transit? Like feeling like their life is determined in some way because of a transit happening or coming up in the future. And it's like, no, like you have the power to decide how that's going to affect you, how that's going to go. It just sets the general energy of that time period.
Okay.
Like, yes, a Saturn transit to your moon or your sun or your ascendant means that year might feel a lot emotionally, like more emotionally heavy.
Yeah.
And there might be more difficulties that come up. But it's like, how are you going to work with that energy and not be like a victim of it?
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. Yeah.
And like sometimes like difficult things do happen. And that's why I try not to take this like overly positive approach. Yes. But it isn't like you're doomed because of something happening in astrology.
I mean, we were talking about toxic positivity last night, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Of like not becoming even a victim of positivity, of everything has to be positive, but rather noticing the balance of everything's a lesson. Or it's like an experience. You're going to be able to grab a tool from the experience, you know, like really embrace something from it, like seeing yourself rather than feeling like you're being attacked or even by the energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I asked that, because I love how you use astrology.
I'm also big on patterns, and I wonder if this is something that comes up in your practice too. Yeah. But I'm always telling people like this same circumstance, the same transit has happened to you before, whether that was a year ago or like 7 years ago in the case of Saturn or 9 years ago in the case of the eclipses. So it's always like you have that reference point to look back at to understand what might come up for you. It's not like something totally random is happening that hasn't happened to you before.
Yeah, I love that. No, definitely. I think patterns come from the creation and accumulation of what you do and how you do it. So if you haven't changed the pattern, which is something I help when you heal and then embody the healing, you start changing the patterns. So the accumulation changes, the result changes.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked about the tool, because if the pattern changed, maybe the energy is going to be felt completely differently. Maybe before it would have like made you, I don't know, cry and not feel okay. And now you're like, no, I actually see the energy and I feel strong. Yeah. So it's almost like you get another experience out of the energy and you get the opportunity to show up differently. That's how I see it energetically and spiritually.
I love that. I totally agree.
Like it comes up, but you decide who you are now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God, I couldn't have put that more perfectly.
I love that, yeah.
I want to talk more about like in your sessions with people or I don't know, like if you're channeling on a social media platform, something like that, or if I'm asking you a question about a situation going on in my life or like a person. Like you mentioned to me that you have like you have clairvoyance, you have clairsentience. Yeah. What are you like feeling? Like if I'm like, hey, Alexia, I'm going through this situation in my life, and then then from that you're collecting like an energy of like, because you're just able to tell me very spot on about what all the dynamics at play. What are you feeling like when someone's coming to you with questions like that? What's the process?
Usually my process is very specific to the feeling. First, I'm very connected to my heart and my kind of like solar plexus area. Mm-hmm. So I start feeling the energy. It's almost like I'm open to receiving.
Yeah.
And then I either feel or sense the emotion of the situation. I'm really good at noticing what emotion is what.
Okay.
And I know which ones are mine. Like I'm very aware of how I felt before anyone asked me anything.
Yeah.
I'm very self-aware. And then I see almost the best way I can describe it. It's like a little TV opens up.
Yeah.
And I just see the image very clearly. And I think that's my mind's eye just being very open to seeing things. And it's never really changed. It's always happened that way. The only thing that would be different is if I'm walking around and I see someone who's like an ancestor or something. Mm-hmm. They seem a little more like further away.
Okay.
Like energetically.
So it's kind of first the feeling and then more of a vision.
Yeah. It is a bit instant. That's like the process, but it is very like in a second I can just go like through it all.
Crazy how spot on you are.
Thank
sometimes
you.
I'm like, how did you know that about that person? Like I couldn't even put that into words. Yeah.
I think I just really lack the judgment of it. Mm-hmm. I just open my heart, I see it and it's like, oh, it's this. Like I don't really have a judgment or I don't read it with my mind. Mm-hmm. I think when people disconnect from their intuition is because they're really trying to read it with their mind. Mm-hmm. Rather than really just being open to the information. Our mind has a perception. It's the way you perceive from like what you healed or haven't healed or your lifestyle, your belief system. Mm-hmm. I completely take that off. So I just see.
Oh, okay. So I need to learn how to do that.
Honey, you're really good. So we'll get there. Yeah.
You mentioned how you're able to identify what are your emotions versus someone else's. That's something I struggle a lot with. Like if I encounter like someone that's angry, I'm often kind of picking up on their anger and making it my own. Or like if I'm giving an astrology reading, afterwards I do feel a bit drained because it's like I've taken on someone else's problems and their emotions. How do you, like, what are tips for other people that work in kind of healing professions or just for anyone in general? How to like protect your energy and not like get lost in someone else's so much?
Yes. I mean, my perspective of it is that we don't really need to protect ourselves, but rather be so detached from wanting to understand everything. I think one of the reasons why people feel so attacked by energy, it's because we want to understand it.
Yeah.
So energy is emotion. So emotion is energy in motion, and it's all around. You get to pick and choose. You truly do. You get to, if someone's screaming, you get to not scream back and really assess why they're angry and detach, or you get to feel angry like them because you take it personal.
Yeah.
So the best way to detach from it is when you don't want to understand it and you don't want to carry it. So when you care a lot, you tend to carry it.
Yeah, that's me. I'm always trying to understand why someone did something to me or is doing something in general.
And usually it's not even personal. It's about them, their patterns. Because if someone does something to you because you did something, they'll communicate. Mm-hmm. Or if you ask, they'll have an answer of, oh, it's because you did this. And then it can be, mutual communication of maybe it was a misunderstanding or something. But if they do something and it's really just who they are, then it's about them. So it's staying detached from wanting to understand them and understanding yourself being enough.
Yeah.
Like that's enough. Being so self-aware of, in those situations, I usually don't get mad. Or I used to get mad when I was at this age because I had this relationship when I was younger and they're triggering that. So am I really mad at them or at the trigger? So it's a lot of self-awareness and detachment from that over-identification of who you are in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
That's why when people tell me, oh, it's because I'm an empath, I say, well, I understand I'm very sensitive. You were in the museum with me, remember?
Yes, yeah. we were in Madrid visiting our friend Maxine, who lives in Madrid. And we were in, there's a famous museum in Madrid. I'm forgetting the name now.
Me too.
Famous art museum. And there was this kind of depressing room where like the museum made it clear it was a depressing room. Where it's kind of like death and violence. That was the theme throughout all the paintings. And you were like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, museums overwhelm me too. Like I can never be in them for too long. I start to just kind of like get anxious and my energy feels very frazzled. So was that kind of what you were experiencing? You just like, you were able to pick up on like the artist's mental health at the time they were painting these things.
So since everything carries energy, for example, people who are very depressed, I tell them, please avoid a scary movie.
Yeah.
Please avoid a sad movie. You don't need to cry more. Why? Because you're connecting to the energy. So I really take care of what I want to connect to.
Okay.
I really take care of, I see something sad and dark. I'm like, why would I even expose myself to connecting to that? So I also invite everyone to understand we do have power over that.
Yeah.
We do have a choice. And usually in museums, it's that the paintings, art, any type of art, it was made with emotion. So depending on what emotion is there, plus the emotion of people and their reaction towards them, it's like a supercharged energetic space.
Okay.
That like kind of like activates everything in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's
because
really
I remember last month I was having trouble sleeping and I was super anxious in August. And you were like, honey, why don't you just not watch TV that before bed that is very like on edge? And I was literally had been watching like dramatic reality TV.
Yes.
And I was like, how does Alexia know that I'm literally watching stuff that gets me worked up before bed?
Yeah. And I mean, I see it in the energy. I see people who are more attracted to the fighting of others because they wanted to speak up and fight and then they never got to. So they get like, I don't know, like they feel strong as they're watching it.
Okay.
So it depends on why you're doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look more closely at why I watch certain shows or read certain books.
And I mean, you can get to the point where it's just for fun.
Yeah.
But if it's still triggering and still amplifying your energy, then you're still connecting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how in your practice and through the sessions, like I've done this before, gotten like a package of healing sessions with you and focusing on family is like what you're about. Like that's the kind of the focus point of what you do with people first. Like even if I want to know about career or love life, it's like, no, first we need to take it back to childhood and the family.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why that's so important to you?
To me and overall, really, my guides really show me how we are here as a family. We are our perfect mirrors. So whoever your mom, your dad, your siblings are, they're showing you something of you. Whether you like what they're showing or not, you're here to go through evolution.
Yeah.
You're here to amplify and not make better, but make it simpler. Life is about becoming easy and simple, simplifying it as much as you can, being able to pick the energy you want, the emotion you want, being able to connect to your channel where you don't depend on anything. Family is all about dependency at first. So to become independent, you have to start there.
Yeah.
What made you independent? What did you over-identify with? Who made you feel a certain way where you disconnected from your authenticity, everything you came here to be? What were you triggering in them? Because we're healing our parents.
Yeah.
We're healing our grandparents. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make us special either. They did it too, in their own way.
Yeah.
So it's this evolution of noticing that we're all unique and amazing. And family is that powerhouse where you get to change the lineage and outgrow so many things. So all the answers tend to be there. Yeah. Even like who you pick as a partner, or it comes from there, the patterns. And what I believe the most in is honoring your parents, whether they showed you what not to do and if they showed you what to do.
Yeah, I very much believe people choose their family situation to learn something in this life.
Of course, yes. Yes.
I was going to say, we had a session one time that was like, I always think about it, which was stuff going on in my career and life. Like last year, you were like, we need to take it back to when you were 7 years old. And you were able to like go into my 7-year-old sense of self and channel like what my 7-year-old wanted me to know about myself. And I was like sobbing because it was so accurate. I don't know what I wanted to ask with this, but I was just like, it was so fascinating that you could tap into like a younger version of me and like remind myself what my younger version of myself needed to tell me now.
Well, usually the way I see energy is like a ladder, but sideways. Mm-hmm. And they show me ages. And they show me what emotion, what energy you're pulling out of it, and what you needed to hear then, what you needed from people, from your parents. So it's time to give it to yourself.
Yeah.
Coming from you. So usually I bring out that energy for you to be able to speak to yourself and give yourself what you wanted, maybe more in an adult way, where it's like, okay, what would nurturing look like now? But then that same thing is the ladder keeps going. So I keep seeing what you're creating.
Yeah.
Along the way. And that goes back to the patterns. So, yeah.
Are there specific ages where, I don't know, because with astrology, looking at like childhood and into teens and 20s, there's specific turning points and like ages that apply to everyone of when life changes or when certain things, I don't know, emotions come up, like the Saturn square at age 7 or your first nodal opposition at age 9.
Yeah.
Is there certain, like, what is it, benchmarks like that you notice happening?
I usually notice when something happened and when it almost like was created externally. So let's say someone received some sort of trauma at 3. Mm-hmm. And I see it created or accumulated and expressed by 7 or 9.
Okay.
But I don't see specifically markers.
For like everyone.
For everyone. Okay. Everyone has a very different type of age they're focused on or I have to help them focus on. But I do see that there's this exercise that I always give. Mm-hmm. My guides, when I channeled it, it was, for them, it was like very important. And it's to close, and whoever wants to try this, it's very powerful. It's to close chapters every 7 years. So right now you said 7. Every 7 years you put a name, you name that chapter from 0 to 7, and you write down everything you want to tell yourself through those years. Yeah. You tell your story. And you close the chapter with whatever tool you learned those 7 years.
That's so fascinating that you said number 7, because number 7 is so important with astrology too, because that's the Saturn transit. Like the Saturn square is 0 to 7, then from 7 to 14, that's when you're building to the opposition, then the square again, and then the Saturn return, and the cycle repeats itself. So every 7 years, you're reaching this checkpoint of like, am I doing the right things that I want to be doing? How can I commit to certain areas versus ones I want to release and let go of?
Okay. So you're like shedding. It's like this shedding stage and just keeping what is important.
Yeah. So it's interesting that 7 comes up for both of us.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can tell you. They really give me like an age. So every 7 years, and 7 means alignment when it comes to sacred geometry.
Oh my God.
When I channel it. Yeah, it means alignment.
I want to also ask like kind of fun questions about your sessions. Like, for instance, before I met my now husband, I would come to you and be like, I'm dating this guy. Is it going to last? And you would immediately know, like, Alice, like, no, this is not the person for you. Yeah. And when I did meet my husband and we had first started dating, I was actually scared to come to you. I was like, I don't want to know. Like, I like him a lot. Yeah. How do you handle like when someone comes to you about something and you just see like that's not the right thing for them, whether that's career or moving or relationship related?
So although I see the truth, I also see why the person is presenting themselves in someone's life. And sometimes it's a lesson, or they have past lives together and they have to heal something together. So I don't tend to be always so clear. I just say, well, it might be a lesson or it might be an experience you have to go through. So if you're still feeling connected, go for it. Why? Because we have to live. Yeah. We can't just be looking for the one all the time. The one just comes when you're ready and when you're connected. But there has been times where it's like, no, you should really get away. And I try to be funny about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, honey, let's see. Are you really connecting, or is it activating something that you really want? Is it lust? So I help them kind of like discover it with me, but I'm pretty much telling them like, that's not the one.
Yeah, I noticed you'll never flat out be like, no, don't do that. And
no, yeah.
Same with like in readings, I'm never like, no.
Yeah.
But you kind of help, tap into like their own intuition. Actually, what are some other tips you have for people wanting to trust their own intuition more, instead of relying on always going to an astrologer or always going to someone like you?
Yeah.
Because yes, it's helpful, but it's not something you want to become dependent on.
Definitely, yeah.
How can people, like, where would be a good place to start for wanting to build that trust muscle with their own instincts?
So I think that's one of my biggest goals, for people to become so dependent that they have their own channel activated. And it's very simple. You have to start with, of course, you have to heal. If not, you're going to perceive life with the wound, with that energy. But if you already feel like you healed and you embodied the healing, which is you changed your pattern, then you have to start really with intention. Why are you doing things? So that you understand why you're connecting to something. And I'll explain. Let's say you wake up and your intention is to just have joy all day. But then you start connecting to lack of joy. Your intuition is telling you something. What are you doing that's not giving you joy? So start with intuition towards yourself. I think people use intuition for safety. Intuition is not for survival.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people disconnect from it and start building like a rule book that I always say you have to throw away.
Yeah.
So use it for yourself. Use it for fun first. Use it with joy. Intuition in a way where, okay, I'm not feeling the joy right now, and I said I want it to feel joy, then what's taking it away?
Yeah.
Usually people avoid the true intuition because maybe it's going to show you don't like your career. It means it's asking you for this huge shift where you have to do so many things, but you're waiting for someone to tell you this isn't working out for you.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, like, that was me with my love life. It was like I was always asking other people, like, is this normal behavior? Like, he hasn't texted me back in 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was just like, if I had listened to my own intuition, someone causing me that much anxiety is not necessarily the right person.
Yeah. So I think starting by using it for you, not for survival, not connected to fear, but rather more of a fun, playful thing to do, setting an intention is key. Even if you're out in a restaurant and you want to like look around and people watch, kind of like practice with your intuition. Oh, are they waiting for someone or no? No, my intuition says they're on dinner by themselves. Like, make it very simple. When you make things very simple, your physical body won't feel triggered. Your intuition will start thinking it's play because it is about play. It'll just be you playing in the playground of Earth instead of let me survive in this jungle and you're afraid of everything and everyone's against you. And that's when intuition kind of like, it's more of a trauma focused than a real thing.
I also kind of like to notice when it's like you're randomly thinking about someone and then they text you, or like, I find when it's kind of out of nowhere and it's not something you've been like fixating on, like when just a random thought comes to you out of nowhere, that's usually when it's intuition.
Definitely, because you're not, again, when I say survival, it's because you're trying to be told what to do. When you're really using intuition, you're just a receiver. You're just receiving. And usually I believe in telepathy. So if you're in the mode of just being in the now and you're just open to receiving rather than, oh, what is this person doing? And how can what would they think about me? And like really seeking and desiring shuts it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how your own process has changed over the past few years too, because when I first started coming to you, it was like when you would channel like past life stuff or just questions I had, you would have to go into like a trance and you wouldn't remember what you said to me. But now it's more like you can just automatically tell me. How have you undergone a transformation yourself and like becoming better at what you do?
I think the shift was really focused on accepting the responsibility behind it. It was more of an internal thing. I had to really accept that I did see more. I did know more. I just didn't want to give it because I was scared.
Yeah.
It was a lot of responsibility. So I can still close my eyes and just channel and the guides speak. But at the end of the day, it's clearer when I just see it, I say it, and I'm translating it in easier words or simpler words. So this transition, these 4 years have really taught me to just really trust myself.
Yeah.
To share it. I've always trusted my channel and used the information for me very clearly. But when it came to others, I noticed I was a bit holding up a lot of information just because I didn't want to hurt anyone or their feelings or, sometimes telling someone, no, that's not the person. They don't take it so well. So I had to learn how to communicate as well in a graceful way where receiving the information wouldn't be so heavy. So it was like me growing with my communication. That's how it shifted. So it was just me accepting my power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to ask, like, when you're giving sessions, like, if people are interested in working with you, like, what type of questions should they come with, or how can they prepare? Or also just like when you do, I know you do Substack and you do live Q&As, like what type of questions should people have for you?
So I usually can answer anything. And if I can't, I then tell you, like, I think you're getting ahead or this isn't for you. It just comes in very clearly. But I think the best questions are focused on not just family, but what triggers you. Triggers are very important because they're giving you information. They're not against you. So if you have a trigger with, friendships, this one's very common.
Yeah.
Friendships usually don't call me or they don't invite me. I always have to invite them. It seems so simple, but the energy's so big. And it's so personal. Everyone has a different story. So there's a different answer for everyone. When it comes to love life, everyone wants like a rule book where I tell them, do this, like these are the steps. But everyone has a different connection to love. So usually they have to ask about, wait, how can I get to know my love language? So then I can connect to love. How can I get to know myself? So any questions that are about the self, how can I get to know myself? How can I get to know this about me? Why do I get this trigger? Why do I have this fear? I think fears are key. Why can't I stand, my mom, my dad? Those are very common. Yeah. How can I make more money? That's the common one.
Wait, that's one I want to linger on a bit. It just came to me. I was like, wait, I need to ask you about money. Because that's always something I'm thinking of the most.
Yeah.
And like, how do you, if you're wanting more of something, like a better career opportunity or more money for yourself, like what are the steps? Or like, how can you be more open to that? Because something I've talked about on this podcast, like, is I struggle to like hold on to money a lot. And like, there's like more of a scarcity mindset there. Yeah. Like, how can I change those certain beliefs? Or maybe someone has a scarcity mindset with their love life.
Yeah. So scarcity is very connected to just overall energy. You're just translating into different symbolism from love to money to different things. I also have people who can't get a job.
Yeah.
It's like impossible for them. And others who it's very easy. So scarcity is really about noticing how you might value yourself more when you have to do more. So if you start feeling like you don't have enough money or like it's running out, you look for your self-value in the work you're going to do next. Usually I see this in people who are extremely, what's the word? Like not motivated, but ambitious. Mm-hmm. They need to feel the lack to go into the ambitious state.
Yeah, this is me.
And start pulling in money.
Yeah.
So that's the pattern that needs to change. And the pattern is, okay, when did this lack start? That made you shift into becoming everything you want it to be. That's an old version of you. Let's find a new one. Mm-hmm. So money, not having enough or feeling like you can't really connect to it has a lot to do with self-value. And where you, first of all, your definition of self-value, that's very important. Redefine it if you need to. Connect to how you're using your energy. Do you feel like you have to give too much to get a little bit of energy back from people, or that's what you were used to?
Yeah.
Because money is just energy. And honestly, I think we're in an era right now as humans that energy is very important. And that's why we're going into this phase of people really getting to know these type of tools and connecting to an astrologer, to a channeler, because people want to get to know energy. That's why right now there's this huge emphasis on money.
Yeah.
Recession and this and all these scary words, because people have to now confront their energy and be like, wait, how can I connect to my own abundance? So we're being pushed to connect to our own abundance. And that type of freedom, because energy is freedom. If you have enough energy, you feel free. You don't need anyone.
Yeah.
So value, freedom, define them. Create patterns for them. How are you going to nurture them every day in your lifestyle? Because spirituality is energy. Mm-hmm. So whoever you're being and creating constantly, that's your spirit.
I love that practice you have of going back to an earlier age when that dynamic might have worked for you better, but now it just doesn't. Like something you helped me with was like, you're still in your mindset of your 25-year-old self when you were trying to like build your astrology business and you had to work super hard. Like going back and just being like, okay, it all worked out.
Yes. It's like last night I was talking about, I hope she doesn't get mad, but I was talking about how my little sister was like, I mean, she's 16, but she's the baby. She's our baby, you know? She's like, I don't want to grow up.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean I have to grow up? Although she's mature and she does whatever a 16-year-old needs to do, but her mentality was still like, I'm the baby. So shifting, the rebirth doesn't have to be a shadow. Mm-hmm. Everyone talks about the shadow and darkness. It doesn't have to be that. It has to be that shift that you did from 25 to now of what's my new version? I needed that then. What do I need now? Yeah. And that's when I say we always have what we need to get what we want. So if you want more money, it means you have everything you need to get there. Mm-hmm. So what do you have right now? Well, right now, maybe you have more peace. You're not that 25-year-old.
Yeah.
You have more support. You have a team now. Your career has a completely different definition. Yes, astrologer, but what does astrologer mean to you now? Redefining yourself, rebirth. And it's really fun. It's like, of course, there's grieving. It's like, oh.
Like that phase is over.
Yeah, I don't have to be so ambitious. What does ambition mean now then? Oh, well, maybe that everything's easy and I just get what I want.
That's simple. So hard to accept.
It's like simple.
Yeah.
Honey.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm just like, I need to put all of this more into practice in my own life and not be so, I don't know, on edge or like controlling, I guess. Yeah. Where, if people who have been listening are interested in following you further, where can people find you? What services do you have at the moment?
So they can find me on Instagram, which is Alexia Landa. I do readings, one-on-one readings. They're the funnest because I would love to describe exactly what it is, but I think it's different for everyone. What I do is read your energy and show you the mirror you need to be able to heal or embody it. I get a lot of clients who come in and they're like, but I already went through all the healing. And I'm like, yes, but now you need to embody it. Let's change the pattern. So I kind of give you the structure you need to change. We see your map. Everyone has an energetic map. So I do one-on-one readings. I do Substack, which is more of an overall energy. And you receive a monthly forecast where I talk about the overall energy of the month. I talk about tools you're going to need that month. I include numerology and colors you should be connected to and a fun playlist because music is all about vibration and kind of like playing with that energy and motion I've been talking about.
Yeah, I noticed you've been posting a lot about music and like.
Yes, I love it.
I forget what you were saying about music though.
So music, I love dancing meditations. I think that's my favorite one because you feel the control of the change of your emotion, which is what I like to teach the most, that you get to choose.
Yeah.
So I do a whole playlist with whatever energy I channel, what songs should be on there.
Okay.
Very symbolic. And then I do 2 Q&As per month if you're subscribed, where you can come in and ask anything you want, which is the funnest thing ever.
Yeah, my sister Julia did that.
Oh my God, I know.
When she was moving to LA, she's like, where do I live? And you really helped her.
I love that. Yeah. I just love to help. I think it's so fun to see people's energies and everyone doing something so different in their life. Like we're truly all unique. That seeing people's energies like, oh my God, you should be doing this. Just go and do it. You have everything you need to get what you want. Yeah.
What is your Substack channel called?
It is called Spirituality is Simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone can find it. Spirituality is Simple. And then your website is alexialanda.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And Alexia Landa on Instagram.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much, honey, for having me. It was truly special. It went by so fast.
I know.
Yeah. Round 2 whenever we can.
Yeah. I'm going to have to re-listen to all this.
I know. Thank you, honey.
Yeah.